I thought life would never be good again, that I would never experience joy again. I would never experience hope or healing. I was that person that said, yeah, but you don't know my story. You don't know what I have walked through, what I have seen, what I have experienced, what I have lived through.
I can't breathe. Yeah. I was in the middle of a class. Now, finally, I've delayed the problem, and now I can't delay it anymore because physical symptom, right? So I end up in the ER.
There was also a point where my marriage was close to being done, and that was a really tough season. If I didn't have the bravery to turn to something that could produce healing versus to turn to the thing that keeps giving me death and avoidance, I would have lost a lot. I am turning in my letter of resignation tomorrow, this way. If the idea of growth, healing, and change are really just a farce at just trying to keep up with this thing that never stops.
If you asked us what's the most common question or concern we get at LCBC, they often are about mental health, mental struggle, mental pain, or hurt. And so we decided we're going to go ahead and have a conversation about it. So joining me here is Adam and Josh. Welcome, guys.
Hi, yeah. Adam Boguski, therapist in Lancaster and Philly area and an educator. I'm super excited to be here. I think this conversation is not happening enough, and I've given 17 plus years of my life to trying to have this conversation and figure out brokenness and healing and what to do when I say I'm fine and I'm not.
Yeah, Josh Irvin, and I've been in for 20 plus years in this field. Also educator, love to supervise people in this and just seen a lot of people through the years. And this is very important conversation. I'm really hoping we get into talking a little bit about who's reluctant to get in here and talk about their mental health stuff. So anyway, we're really glad to be here today.
And of course, I'm also joined by one of my absolute favorite co-hosts and a person that's incredibly wise, Chelsea Good. Hi, Chelsea.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm super pumped to talk about this. I feel like I've lived on the other side of these men a lot in my own journey with mental health and struggling through just the journey that I have.
What are we talking about when we talk about mental health? Because there's a huge gamut of what we could be talking about. So what is the average person dealing with when they say, I'm not okay?
Most of the time it's, I'm worried, I'm anxious, I'm fearful. Have something happening in my life that really disrupted me. And so they want to come in and they want to just be like, help me. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But most of the time it's depression, anxiety, and then we deal with a lot of trauma.
So Josh, what I love what you just said there is right away, I think a lot of people think mental health, they think of someone that is extremely bothered or extremely mentally unwell. And so a lot of people, that stigma, they're like, that's not me. But what you just described there could describe most people at some point in their life. You said they're worried, they're anxious about things, they're going through some big feelings. And you're saying that can be mental health stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, we all can relate to that. And everybody has mental health problems at some season in their life, right? We're not gonna just make it through the whole way through our life without having some kind of disruption, some kind of loss or grief, or we just can't control life. And so sometimes life just kind of rolls over us. And usually when people feel that life rolling over them, they don't know where to turn. And so oftentimes they'll just come into the office and they turn other places as well. And we can get into that.
So I love what you said. I just want to really highlight it. So Josh, you talked about the fact that it usually deals with depression, anxiety, and trauma. I know for us as men, we have a tendency to bottle the most. And we have a tendency to presume we can manage. Like I can manage. Just give me, you know what I need? I need a whole day in the tree stand and I'm going to be good. I'm going to be good. Yeah. I need a night out with the buddies and I'm going to be good. Mm-hmm. So we do tend to, just think that we can handle it. Mm-hmm. But how many times do you see men screw this up the most when they are out over their skis on their own mental health?
If I could just say something about that. Sometimes you do need that. You need to go spend some time with some buddies. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. We need to have a good time, but usually what's happening is we're missing opportunity to turn to our brother and say, hey, I'm struggling with something. Right. And that's not what most guys do. We don't just, hey, I'm struggling. But usually you find yourself doing that when you're pressed over a long period of time. And sometimes people avoid doing that with their buddies and they come to a therapist or they get sent to a therapist.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a stereotype, but it's a little bit true that for most men, every man is different, but for most men, the range of emotion is usually laughter to anger. That's about it, right? So it's a very narrow range, right? So there's either stoicism, anger, or laughter. We were joking before that. I mean, we could make a specialty out of doing therapy with men who are therapy averse. I feel like we get that a lot. But one of the struggles, and I think anybody else can have this struggle too, is whether it's a man, a woman, or a child, a teenager, like we go through these struggles where we convince ourselves, there's just different versions of that, where we convince ourselves it's not a big deal.
Right.
I think I'm afraid if it's real or true because I'm making it a big deal in my head. I'm running from it. Or I'm just trying to tamp down the symptoms. You said this earlier. I thought that was a great point to come back to. I'm not really looking at the root of what's happening. I know I feel something buzzing in my chest. I've been anxious for 6 months because my job's not going so good and I'm not telling my wife how our finances are tanking. But man, when I hit that fourth cocktail, on the Thursday night football game, the buzzing quiets down a little bit. So like the best I can manage is to try to get rid of some of the symptoms that are bothering me. But I never move towards the root. So it stays and it grows. I actually create a relationship with it where I'm fostering it to grow.
Wow, that's really a good perspective.
And that goes way beyond just men. That is
For sure.
That is a human thing.
Yeah.
Kids do that.
Just different flavors.
Absolutely. Trying to cope with and cover up the pain that we're feeling, the discomfort, the suffering, like you were talking about, and trying to mask it so we just don't feel it. Because I think we're so afraid to feel uncomfortable. We're so afraid to feel pain that we want to do everything we can to just get rid of it. And so often it's not actually addressing the root of the issue and getting rid of it, like digging out the root of the weed.
So if I could summarize this whole first section, basically we're saying is one, mental struggles is we're destined. Like basically everyone's going to go through them. And I love that you guys kind of, gave me peace in the fact that you can love Jesus or not have a relationship with Jesus, but mental struggles can come to both evenly. And you talked about the fact that mental struggles are often anxiety, depression, or dealing with some trauma from the past. And if you keep stuffing, it doesn't mean that it's going to heal itself. In the same way that a guy, if your son or daughter cut themselves, you wouldn't want them to hide it from you. Because it's going to fester. It's going to be a wound. And you can think, well, I'll just keep putting Band-Aids on. But if it's infected, it's going to keep getting worse. And our brains, our emotions are the same way. If you don't address it, it's going to get worse. Now, you started hinting at, I'm just talking for most human beings. And I think this is guys and girls alike. We self-medicate. We self-medicate because it's so much easier to get through the day if I just think, I just got to get to wine o'clock and we self-medicate. But what's the problem with that? Because I think if you're asking me, I would say 50% of the population right now is self-medicating mental health.
Probably more than that.
90.
90.
Seriously.
90. That's a great question. I mean, I think on a certain level, we are, and this is what you were talking about a little bit, like we are designed, our bodies and brains are designed to be a bit pain averse, right? So like the stove is hot, pull your hand away. So to give everybody, all of us and watching and listening some credit, like avoidance is built into us to some degree. You feel pain, get away from it, right? The question is, what if pain or my anxiety or me feeling really down or depressed, what if I'm designed in such a way for that to be a signal to communicate something to me, and then I just do everything I can to shut it up? So it's trying to speak to me that there's something misaligned, that something's going on, but those symptoms are pesky, they're painful, they're not enjoyable. I don't feel normal when they're happening. I'm not enjoying my life, and so I shortcut, I short circuit, I just find a way to stamp them out. So always in that process, I will never be, you were talking about if a child's self-harming and you don't know as a parent, right? It's going to get worse because it must be brought into the light in order for people to mobilize around it to create healing, right? But if we stamp out every signal our body, mind, emotions give us that something's off, and we just turn the volume down, which is what the 5 beers do.
Yeah.
Right. It's what happens when I don't want to hear my wife complain when I come home. And so I'm just going to go to the bar. It's what happens when I sit in the driveway and I don't want to go into my house anymore when I come home from work, because I've had it up to here with everybody and I can't handle the noise. And I'm hitting this point, right? I'm just trying to quiet the noise.
Right.
But what if in the noise, there's a message that there's something specific that's off? You don't have to live like this, but you would have to listen and you'd have to respond.
It's so good.
So that you've given me a great visual there when you were talking. It makes me think of a lot of us drive cars. I'd say everyone listening here drives a car. And on that car, there's going to be a check engine light that's going to come on.
Yeah.
Now, there's 2 ways of handling that check engine light. You can go like, hey, this check engine light's on for a reason. I can go do something about it. Or I can get some black electrical tape and I can go like, done.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
Problem
I no
solved.
longer see it.
Right.
I know. So you just said it.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
No, what was solved was I don't see it.
Right.
Yeah.
The whatever is wrong with the engine that triggered that light is
Still wrong.
going.
It's
Yeah.
problem delayed. You just
Right.
delayed it. So you delayed the pain of having to take that to the shop and fork out the cash.
Mhm.
This hits hard. This just happened to me by 2 cars.
Oh.
So anyway, but you delayed the pain so that you get immediate relief. Oh, problem solved.
Yeah,
Problem
but so
delayed.
often when the one thing is broken, and I've definitely done this, you ignore it, it breaks down more and more and more. You might have just needed an oil change or air in your tires, right? It might have just been air in your tires, but because you ignored it, now you blew a tire, and now it's $500 as opposed to going to Sheetz and pumping up for free, just acknowledging what it was. So often it can spiral and lead to bigger issues.
Yeah, that's human, right? It's
Yeah.
human to kind of be a little bit averse of the pain, not
Yeah.
wanting to deal with it.
Right.
Because what's going to happen? What's that mean? Am I going to and we're not talking about cars here. We're talking about mental health symptoms.
Right.
What is it? Well, maybe I can't breathe.
Yeah.
I was in the middle of a class, or I was at work. I was doing my job and I couldn't breathe. And so I don't know. Now finally I've delayed the problem. Right. And now I can't delay it anymore because physical symptom. Right. So I end up in the ER.
Wow.
And all the tests get run,
Mhm.
and it's kind of a common problem.
Mhm.
And the doctor looks at you and says, "Hey, listen, here's a referral. I want you to go see a counselor. You have anxiety,
Mm.
or something is happening, but it wasn't physical."
Mm.
So I don't know if this is something you want to get into, but it would be interesting to talk a little bit about how you were talking about inside parts, how our body and our brain work together a little bit.
Take me there.
Well, I think that's the check engine light part,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which, by the way, is a great metaphor for any men who are into cars.
Well,
Like-
because I think we all understand that the check engine light means something else,
Yes.
something more. And I think every guy that actually really loves cars, I'm not saying every guy loves cars, but every guy that does love cars knows if you ignore that, what are you doing? That's insane. Don't
Why
do
would
that.
you do that?
Yeah.
Right?
Why would you do
Yeah.
that with something as stupid as a car compared to
Yeah.
your life?
Yeah.
Right.
Serious.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's crazy to ignore
Right.
what's speaking to you.
Yeah.
Sometimes your emotions speak to you,
Right.
these symptoms. Sometimes your body speaks to you.
Mhm.
But I think where you were going, I think is a good thing to talk about. There are some of these symptoms are not always emotional. They're not always feelings. They're not always just thoughts. Sometimes they are. What happens when my body is responding weird?
Right.
Is that physical health?
Yeah.
Is that mental health?
Right.
Right. And we know that our mind, emotions, and body, like we're a whole organism.
Mhm.
So any one of those triggers responses in all of them. I thought your story was great. This happens all the time. You may or may not know it, but somebody close to you has probably had this story where they think they're having a heart attack. They call an ambulance.
Yeah.
They go to the ER, and in their story of their life, they figured out that was their first panic attack. Right. So like that's a very physiological response to probably stress that's been building and not
Whoa.
been taken care of for a long time.
So you're saying that if I ignore the I'm having fearful days. The anxiety is that fear inside that I can't run away from. Work is overwhelming. The bills are coming due, and I'm feeling that and you're saying that eventually that manifests to my body.
100%.
Yeah, your body and your brain are connected. Does everybody know that? I think you know that. But we have a complex thing happening in our brain in and around how we experience, maybe some kind of trigger or trauma, and our brains actually go from our whole brain function. I do that, but the top part of our brain, which is the part of us that is online when we're hanging out with our buddies and we're calm, cool, and collected, and everything's going well. But when we're triggered, that part of our brain kind of runs efficiently, so it shuts down a little bit. And the deeper part of our brain, our lower brain, kind of comes online. And God made us that way.
Yeah.
And so when that's happening, we're not thinking with our whole brain. We're not thinking straight. And then it sends messages to our body. So it releases, it tells your body, release something called cortisol, which is just stress hormone. So stress and adrenaline, and that gets your heart going, boom, 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 boom. So your heart's starting to run a little bit faster. Your blood pressure's going up. So all this is connected. Well, that's called your sympathetic nervous system, your fight flight.
Yeah.
So you're getting ready to fight or have to run from something that's triggering you.
Right.
That's okay when you are being chased by a bear.
Right.
It's not that great if you're having an argument with your wife or
It's not that okay when you're waiting in line to pick your kids up at school.
No.
And you have that fight or flight, like,
Right.
And you're going to go to some things that you learned in your life. You didn't think about learning them, but they're things that you do in those moments.
Yeah.
And sometimes those things are good. Sometimes they're not so good, and they're not helping you, and they can harm your relationships. They definitely are not helping you to make it through that situation reasonably in a way that has your whole brain potential.
As we're talking about these things and like understanding who God is, it just is amazing how wonderfully complex we truly are. The fact that our bodies and our brains and our spirits are so connected that they affect each other when we don't even know they're affecting each other. It just, God has so intricately knit us for good, but we've been damaged by sin, and we are all broken because of that. But I even experienced my body reacting when my brain was offline or whatever, like, because I've been through trauma. I've experienced some really hard things in my life with my first husband killing himself right in front of me, and I tried to stop him, and I couldn't, and then I got hit with the bullet that came out of his body, and it was just like a obviously horrific experience. And I remember months after, because it happened late at night on March 1st, and it was months later that I was just sitting in bed, okay, stable, just sitting in bed, and all of a sudden my heart starts going. My body starts to react. I'm like, what is going on? Like, physically, my body is reacting. Mentally, I was probably watching Netflix. Like, I wasn't doing anything. Yeah. And then I looked at the clock and I was like, oh, it's like 11:58. And like, that was the time. And I was like, holy crap. And it was the first of the month at that time. And I'm like, wow, my body remembered the date and the time, but my brain was totally unaware. And my body reacted. Like,
so it makes sense though. Like, when you start to realize that what's going on in your mental space affects your physical space, why coping mechanisms would be the things that we go to. So I don't want to feel that anymore.
Right. So let's numb out because this is uncomfortable.
But why is that a problem? I'm just going to be honest with you. I have a friend of mine, and he used to like have severe anxiety, and he would drink himself silly. At night, he would just drink till he couldn't feel anymore. But then, the next morning, he woke up to hell on earth. Everything was worse. Why is that? Is there something with that? And what he ended up doing is he started drinking in the morning too. And before you know it, he's drinking all day. And so, like, I'm just kind of curious, to close out our conversation about coping mechanisms, why is it a problem? And what is the downfall of I'm just going to Grandpa did it. I'm just going to drink beer and, I'll get through this season. Pull my bootstraps up and, I'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. I
That's it.
think you kind of answered it earlier to some degree when we were talking about physical health versus like the outer me versus the inner me, right? If I have stage 1 cancer, which has its own sort of symptom set, and I have pain in a certain area of my body, but I do something to numb that. It's
Just take
progressive.
Tylenol.
It's just
Yeah.
take Tylenol. It's progressive. So this metaphor is not perfect, but if I have brain cancer and I take Tylenol for the headaches, I don't like having headaches.
Right.
100%. Like it's normal to want to avoid that pain to some degree, but it doesn't tune me in to heal the thing that's the cause, which then exacerbates it. Now, a lot of times, not always, are maladaptive coping mechanisms or really just what we do to tamp down the annoying symptoms.
Yeah.
It creates a cycle. So I drink to get rid of feeling sad. However, the sadness keeps growing. So now I can't only drink twice a week. I've got to drink every night of the week. But then when I wake up, I'm hungover and I feel even worse. So now I got to start drinking during the day, right? Now this begins to play out in my job. My performance is going down. Now I'm more depressed than ever, right? So like this just keeps ramping up gradually, and it creates a cycle. A lot of times our maladaptive symptoms create a cycle of shame, more of whatever we're trying to run from when we wake up, which means then again, I have to do the maladaptive thing even more. This happens a lot with pornography or sort of sex addiction, where there's a lot of shame afterwards. But it does give my body an amazing feeling that helps me escape for 30 seconds everything I'm facing. But then what happens 30 seconds after that? I feel terrible. I crash. I feel shame. I can't get out of this thing.
And
the moment I feel that, now how do I get out of that? I got to do it again. I might as well just binge this thing. So like I actually create a cycle that enhances the symptoms, keeps me away from the source problem, and continues me down this sort of slip and slide to hell. To be honest with you, to a living hell. Right. To some degree.
Earlier, we were talking about we delay fixing it. We delay addressing it, right? So that's just delaying fixing, right? So that's what you're saying. But really, oftentimes, that's that first immediate thing that we want. We just want that pain to stop. We just want to make, you know what? For a lot of people, and I think we can all relate to this, it's easier sometimes just to do the thing that we know is just going to help us for the next 30 seconds, like you said.
Instant gratification.
It's instant. So the immediate, so there's this paradox. I want to immediately fix it. Help me, help me, help me. Oh, I'll do this thing.
Yeah.
And then long term, I'm building something worse and worse and
Doesn't
worse.
actually ever fix it. Yeah.
Okay, so now someone's listening. One, you might have just introduced something totally new to people listening, that coping mechanisms can be more than alcohol and drugs. I think there's this misunderstanding that, when I'm trying to cover up the mental shame, the trauma from my past, my depression, my anxiety, pornography, I guarantee you a lot of people are not thinking that pornography is a coping mechanism for mental struggles.
Oh, for sure.
And they just think it's a sex addiction. But you're saying it might actually be a coping mechanism for something deeper. What are some things that people cope with that, people that are joining us in this conversation are saying like, oh my gosh, that's me.
Netflix binging.
For sure.
Yeah.
I've been there.
What is
scrolling?
it? What is
Yes.
Wait,
it?
whoa, doom scrolling? What's
Doom
that?
scrolling.
What is doom
When you
scrolling?
just go
On your
and
phone
you
for
can't stop.
hours.
Yeah.
What else?
Gaming is. I see
Yeah.
that a ton in teen boys, a ton.
Food,
Getting
Oh my
lost.
gosh,
Oh,
is a
yeah.
More
huge
food.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
exercise.
Yeah.
Exercise is great for you, but you can binge exercise. It can become the thing that rescues you. And that's really the whole thing. Pornography, food, too much exercise, whatever it might be, if it's an alternative to what's prescribed.
So all of that is black and electrical tape.
Yeah. Can be.
So all of those things, electrical tape is not bad, but it's just not good for that. It's not going to deal.
Yeah.
Exercise is not necessarily bad. Pornography, I wouldn't recommend it ever.
Yeah,
but
that is just bad.
Yeah, some of these things can be a good thing that you make
Food
bad
is
when
good.
you're not
We need
dealing with
that.
the problem.
Right.
Well, if it's something that like is in the moment, you stumble on it, and that feels good. Oh, that's good. Well, okay, let me try that again.
Yeah.
And for a lot of, we're talking about pornography. I mean, I gotta tell you, this is something that so many men, like lots of men, lots of counselors, pastors,
4 out of 5.
Everybody, this is something that comes at men, and it's not out of the blue. I mean, God made us for an intimate relationship. So pornography, just getting back to what I had originally said, God made us in his image. We need to be in relationship. Relationship essentially is part of healing process. Restoring relationship with God through Christ, we're able to be healed in that way. Now, do we go through a sanctification process? Yeah. So we're not always we're not always acting toward that healing process and relating with God. And you know what? We stumble on something else. Well, guess what? That becomes an intimacy replacement. It's like I'll have intimacy with whether it's food or pornography or alcohol. It's there for me. In fact, I start to love it. It's my precious. It's like
that's a good metaphor.
It's Gollum. Gollum's like my precious. And what's that all about? It's because it becomes precious to you because it's your healer. It's the thing you love.
That's so good.
It's the thing you love, but it's actually the thing that kills you.
Yes.
Right.
So
in the long run.
So you said intimacy killer, and you started talking about the stats on pornography. I'd love to hear those stats.
Yeah, I mean, 4 out of 5 men. This is broadening to females too. Also, more than half of marriages that end in divorce list pornography as one of the key things that brought that about.
So can you even fathom that? Imagine before you say I do, if you found out that 50% of marriages ended because of mountain lions, I think you would be like, I'm not going anywhere near mountain lions.
Yeah.
But we don't. We always assume we can tame it.
Right. Yeah.
Control it.
Yeah. I wish it was a surprise. I feel like now, just because I'm aware of its pervasiveness, the average age is 9 that you'll be exposed to pornography. Used to be 11, used to be 13. Like over the years, it just keeps going down. Yeah. That might even be different now. You were talking about looking for intimacy with a healer. That's a really interesting metaphor. Yeah. We don't know that that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing.
We're designed to be that way.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Oh my
I'm looking for intimacy with a healer.
Yes.
It just so happens that I picked one that can't heal me. I also think the metaphor of drinking is a great one, just in general for these sort of maladaptive coping strategies.
Yeah.
I need a shot of hope. I need a shot of dopamine. I need a shot of just happiness. Just give me something because I'm suffering. This goes back to the theory of suffering. I can't handle this type of suffering anymore. Just give me a shot of whatever. However, that works for 2 seconds.
Right.
Sure.
So hit me with another one. Hit me with another one. Right? It's whatever the substance is. And then it becomes this thing that I cannot live without. So now my problem multiplies. I still have the source. And now I have this new thing, to use spiritual language, I'm in bondage to that has chained me. So my problems continue to manifest and multiply. And this is where that path eventually creates hell on earth for me.
So I want to paint a picture for you. Okay, so you got someone listening that's like Chad. Okay, so I had a moment where I was dealing with depression and anxiety. I mean, crippling anxiety, but I was a pastor, so everyone thought no one knew. I was on my game was on point on the weekend. Like people were like that. Chad has it together. And then I would go home and I would become a different person. I would crash. I mean, like just zombie on the couch crash. And eventually I realize, it finally clicks. And maybe there's a guy listening right now or a gal that's listening right now and it's like starting to click. This is their click moment where it's like, I don't want to do this anymore, but I don't know what do I do next? What do you do? What do you recommend if someone is starting to click? What's the next step? I mean, do they immediately have to go call a counselor? Because I don't want to do that. I assure you, I didn't.
Yeah.
Give me a step. You got to give me something that's not so big.
I think it does require some bravery. I think the bravery is you have to. I mean, this is gonna seem kind of simple, but I think it's really difficult in the moment. You have to talk to another human. It does not have to start with a therapist, but for the most part, you brought up this analogy before in the garden, right? When sin comes in and people feel shame, what do? They hide in the corner. They cover themselves up. They take their shame and they look to not be seen. And so the goal is then just don't let anybody see any of this ever.
Yeah.
Right. And so what is the antidote to that? To be seen.
To be seen.
The starting point is to be seen, to bring it into the light.
Wow.
Right. And so that doesn't have to start with a 1 hour therapy session.
Right.
That might be telling my wife, I think I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And I think I've not been okay for like a year. And I don't really know how to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right. Or whatever. Or it's a friend or a pastor or whatever. Like
Right.
I would actually say start the journey with somebody close to you if you're not sure.
Right.
You don't have to start with a therapist. But that is the first step. It's going to take bravery and it's going to take
Vulnerability.
It's going to take bringing it into the light
Yeah.
instead of hiding.
So who was your first person that you told? So like I'll start. I'll put myself out there. First person I told that I was hurting was my wife. And I remember like I told her I'm fine. I'm just really stressed. Work's really stressful. It wasn't stress. It was much more. And I remember driving to her parents' house in the car and I just started like sobbing. And it had reached the point of physical. So the car was smoking. and I said, I'm not okay. I said, I remember the words, I feel like a broken toy. I feel broken. I feel like something's not right. Something's busted in me. And that started the journey of healing. But it was amazing just getting it out in the light.
There's seasons where there's been multiple people.
That's what I was going to say.
Right.
For sure.
I think in college. Yeah. In college was one, actually, this guy we both know, he's a therapist now, a good friend, depressed to a really dangerous level. And I got really good at just figuring out how to like get through the day.
Yeah.
You know, that's the other hard part is sometimes some of us get good at doing the thing that's not helpful. Like we get really skilled at it actually.
Oh yeah.
In our relationship, actually, we could almost become proud of how good we are at managing the thing that's killing us, right?
Yeah.
Which is not something to be proud of.
Sure.
There was also a point where my marriage was close to being done, and that was a really tough season. That he sat with me and I had to work through some things. And if I didn't have, if I didn't have the bravery to turn to something that could produce healing versus to turn to the thing that keeps giving me death and avoidance, I would have lost a lot. But in that moment, and you talk about this a lot, the turning towards, what are you turning towards or what are you turning away from? And I love your language around that. I'm always turning to something and I'm always turning away from something.
Right.
And usually those are misaligned in these moments, right? So the question you're asking is, when did you actually turn towards a human and finally have the courage to speak the thing? But I could give numerous stories of different seasons of my life.
Yeah. Depends on when it was
Right.
and
Depends
what it
on which
was.
season.
and-
I just want to say you keep framing the coming to someone and having a conversation as bravery.
Yes.
But I think we're not taught that that's an act of bravery. We're taught to, like, our heroes are Aragorn in Lord of the Rings, and it's like you don't. At no point does Aragorn go to Gimli and say, "I'm not having a good day." You know, we don't do that. So like
That's true.
We don't view bravery as sharing.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Maybe it's too like it's not necessarily what we're taught, but what we experience. Because I know you and I had talked about kind of like how church culture sometimes, like there's so much good. We're supposed to be in the church and we want to be with our brothers and sisters in Christ. And we want to talk about the good things God's doing. But sometimes it's kind of like, is that what we're talking about? Are we really talking about so bravery? Bravery is kind of like, is it experienced always? Sometimes we don't experience it as that, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it is so brave because you don't know what you're gonna experience on the other side of your vulnerability.
Yeah.
Because to your point, like even though we're taught all of these things as humans, love your neighbor as yourself. It doesn't even have to be in the church, but I think it is, especially in the church. That's not always what we experience. We might not always experience the gentle, loving hand on the other side of us. And that's why I do think it is brave to be vulnerable, to say, this is my crap. This is what I'm feeling. This is what I experience. I need help. Sometimes people say, well, you just don't have enough faith. So just buck it up.
Right.
Or they might say, well, why did you do X, Y, and Z? It's your fault.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sorry. I experienced this trauma in my life. It's my fault. Like, and so we're hit with not the healing.
Yeah.
And I think that's why we have to be brave, because we don't know what's on the other side. And I think that's what holds people back.
Sorry, you fear the judgment.
Yeah.
Like Adam and Eve, we're going back to the garden again. What's going to happen? Surely, Eve, we're going to die.
Right.
Let's hide as quick as we can and get 5 more minutes on this one.
Yeah.
Because they know what's coming. But instead of judgment, which they still experience judgment, but they experience God's mercy and grace. And I think that's kind of profound that we sometimes avoid gaining mercy and grace by opening up, by being brave, by being courageous, by saying, 100%. Hey, I struggled with this, to our brother who might turn around and be like, wow, hey, I've been there. Like, so we hold back from that because we're afraid of judgment. I was thinking about how Adam and Eve were guilty. You know, sometimes we have things that aren't about our sin, but then sometimes there are things that we deal with that are a repercussion of our sin.
Absolutely.
And so we feel guilty. Yeah. We're guilty. And we were talking about shame, and shame is something that is bad because it says, because of my guilty, I bear this shame. Like that's who I am. Well, but actually guilt is really good, because if we know, it's not good that we're guilty of the actions, but if we can talk about our guilt, if we can be brave and courageous, then actually we can avoid the shame, because we're addressing our guilt. We're taking our guilt to each other and to the healer. What's the verse that you often quote? If we confess our sins.
Yeah. I think in James, confess your sins one to another and pray for each other and you will be healed. Which is this really interesting spiritual, and I would argue clinical too, antidote, which is that which is unspoken must be spoken. It must be released from you. Actually, 200 years of therapy to some degree has been based off this idea that we suppress things, they become a cancer in us, and we're just going to create a space for you to go and literally get them up and out of you, right? And that's the starting point, right? So spiritually, Jesus doesn't say in that verse, or James doesn't say in that verse, go to a therapist. He just says, let's just start with this. Go to each other, say the things you're not saying, and be with each other in that. And he says, this is so powerful, and you will be healed. Which is so interesting that the healing being prescribed there is this basic starting point of you bringing to another person the stuff that you're hiding.
So, but I've never heard that passage referred to with mental health. It's always been sin. Well, confess your sins.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're saying like we need to realize that there's so much more. That passage goes so much more broadly.
I mean, sin, right? Sin, the idea of sin as a definition of missing the mark. Right? There's lots of things that miss the mark. We've talked about mental health sometimes as either a form of suffering or a response to suffering. If I'm abused by my father, is that my sin or his? But then I have trauma. So whose sin is it? Right? So not everything I go through mental health is because I did something, but then I'm going to live a life responding to the suffering, which also usually goes left. Because it's just really hard to figure out how to heal. I'm going to keep it alone. I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm going to start having a hard time in my marriage because I've learned some really not helpful reactive responses when stress comes in the room.
Yeah.
Right. And so these things just build and build for my whole life. But I think there is just truth across the board in that I can't, this is sort of a cheesy quote in our field, but I think it's a good one. I can't tame that which I don't name. With precision, you have to say out loud what the thing is, or you don't have a target. So sin is, there's a whole talk we could do about sin, but sin sometimes is me doing wrong. Sin is also, Jesus said, I came to give you life and give it to you abundantly. Are you living life abundantly? No. Then something's broken there. That's missing the mark. Right. Whether you did it or somebody did it to you, something you're experiencing is missing the mark and needs to be realigned. Right? So it's not so much, sometimes those conversations are not so much about pointing fingers, which I think we bring in the church to confess
Yeah.
must only mean I did something horrific.
Right.
Right. What if confessing means like I've just been struggling with intimacy with my wife and I don't know how to fix it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not going to talk to anybody about that because that's really weird. Right. But these are really common things. Right. So am I sinning, or is it just,
well, you're bringing
it's not as it's meant to be.
You're bringing that into the light, and you're turning toward the other. So confess your sin one to another. But, we're also called pray to your Father in heaven, and he's going to give to you. So what we need to do is turn toward the Lord and turn toward the things he prescribes for us in Scripture, which is community and bringing things into the light. There's an act of faith there that I think is avoiding sin when we're going to where God has called us to go.
You hit something, and I want to go there. Let's go there.
Okay.
You might be a guy that's listening to us out there, and you're saying, I'm fine with the black electrical tape on my check engine light.
Yeah.
And I say, now put your kids in that car.
Yeah.
And that's what you're doing.
That's so good.
You're putting your kids in that car, your wife in that car, your marriage in that car. You're putting them in the car. So let's talk about the effects on our relationships.
Yeah. Both wellness and illness are contagious. They're both contagious. So there are a lot of lies, I believe, to hide all my stuff and try to live my entire life and convince myself it's all going fine while I'm actively working harder and harder to hide all my stuff. One of them is it's only me.
Yeah.
Right. So like,
I'm not hurting anybody else.
Yeah.
It's
the
just
more
me.
depressed I become, like, that's my thing. It's
This is
my
what I
choice,
do.
which it is.
Right.
Right. What I'm not paying attention to is like, what's it like for my wife to live with a depressed husband?
Right.
Who's here but not here. She didn't sign up for 30 years with somebody who's not really even in the room anymore. Right? What's it like for my kids when they run up to me and I have no life in my face? I have no response. Or I'm just really angry because life has not gone my way. The promotions have not come my way. I didn't have a good upbringing. The finances are not good. I compare myself to my neighbor who's got a new car, every 6 months, and I'm just not living up. I just feel like not enough.
So instead of yelling at your neighbor or your boss, you're yelling at your kids to clean up the room, and they're wondering, why does dad have such level of rage over my baseball bat being on the floor?
And I think we hurt the people that are closest to us because they're the safest to take it out on or to show those things. And our issues, our sin, our brokenness, our suffering doesn't only just affect us. While we have the cancer, it is contagious and it affects everyone around us. The stupid choices I make is going to affect my family and my husband and my daughter and my siblings and everyone who cares about me and I care about, it affects whether we see it, realize it, feel it or not.
Healing can be found when we stop realizing that I got to heal for myself.
Right.
I got to heal for someone else. I think if you can't love yourself enough to get well, then I'm just begging you to love yourself, love the family that you're with, the family you're
I
friends.
think that's okay.
Well.
I think that's okay. I think non-spiritual wisdom would lean on the fact that that's not okay. You need to do it for yourself. That's the pure motivation. I think you should do it regardless, which is the point that you're getting at. But for many people, the place I'm in is struggling with valuing myself. So if getting well means, you know what, I'm listening to this and I'm not facing any of that for me. I don't care.
Yeah.
But if I think long-term about my kids and what I wanted for them, I really didn't want them to grow up with a dad like this. I know what it's like to grow up, right? That hits another level because I may love the people around me and be more interested in their well-being than I even am in my own right now, which I think is a fine place to start. Right. I think whatever gets that first step going, and I think that's an important one. I don't think that's minimizing something. If I'm struggling to do it for me, but I want to do it for my spouse or I want to do it for my kids, or I just don't want to give them something that I know is not in my heart, right? And I think the spiritual idea too, I think one, illness is contagious, wellness is contagious. The spiritual concept of that, I think, is fruit. Your tree will produce fruit. Yeah. Fruit is not for me. The tree doesn't eat its own fruit.
Right.
Who eats the fruit?
Others.
Whoever lives in proximity to the tree.
Yeah.
Right. So I feed everybody around me that which I produce.
Wow.
That I nourish them with it. They drink from the well of me.
Yeah.
Right. So if my well is poisoned, right, I'm also drinking probably from poisoned wells as well, in part of the maladaptive part, right? But I go home and they all drink from me.
Yeah.
Take the conversation out of self-help. Okay.
Mm.
I'm just telling you, like, okay, fine. Don't self-help. Help your family.
Right.
Help your marriage.
I'm with it.
Because
Right.
like, I talk to guys that, they're in loveless, sexless marriages because of mental health and then addiction, and then it becomes trauma and it becomes the.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't tell me that collateral damage isn't wife, kids, everything.
Yeah.
And it all started with someone that was putting electrical tape on the check engine light from their own trauma from their past.
Which I think gets back to the self too. I mean, there's a part of that where if I do it for my kids and I go through the process of finding some healing, it will get back. That's contagious back to me too.
Right.
When my kids look at me in a different way, when I know I stop having a feeling shame after I put my kids to bed because I just screamed at them for 45 minutes because I've had enough today and they won't just be quiet and get in bed. And then every day I go through this and they begin to look at me differently when things begin to change and they begin to look up to dad again. There's a part of me that gets healed that I think I wanted all along, but I wasn't going to just do for myself. So again, like that gets mirrored. If I change things because my wife says like, we're trending off a cliff here.
Yeah.
Right. And she begins to look at me different. And I feel like she values me again because I didn't value me at all. And I definitely knew she didn't value me.
So you're saying you can steer away from contempt. The cancer of marriage is contempt. I think we realize that when contempt and disdain come into a marriage, but you're saying that can be reversed and like your wife can look at you differently again and your kids can look up to you again. But what if you're a family member? What if you're someone listening to this, but you're listening because someone in your life that you love is struggling? Okay, so I'm gonna flip it, and this is harder, okay? Because now we're talking about healing by proxy.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so can you give me some advice or give me some thoughts on the wife that says, I don't even know this guy anymore, or the mom that's like, my kid, I just don't know how to help him.
Mm-hmm.
I think for Adam and I, one of our specialties is working with whole families.
Mm-hmm.
So in our expertise, it's not just working with individuals, it's helping those kind of situations that you just talked about. And, so there are these cycles, these vicious cycles that we get into. So those don't change overnight, but I think they start with, if you're that wife that's saying, what do I do? Or I have a kid, it starts with pray, talk to the people around you. Try to see beyond what's the thing that I'm viewing that's making me feel disturbed and distraught inside. Sometimes though, it does require, I think we need some help. And so I encourage people to come to counseling, but come open-minded. Don't come thinking, okay, I'm going to bring my kid in and they're going to get fixed.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is a fallacy. Relationships in life are very complex. I can't tell you how many times I've been really upset with my wife because she did something and we have it out. And then later I'm like, man, I did that thing earlier that she showed me and I was the one that kind of caused that. And so it gets flipped around. So kind of having a curiosity and an openness, I really encourage people to think, what am I missing? Just because I see it this way, maybe I see it wrong. Come into treatment and realize that we're not going to just try to figure out who's to blame.
Right.
I think most people in that situation are just thinking, I sure am not to blame because I want a good family. So it must be Chad over here.
Yeah.
And so, just a little bit of a less rigidity there, a little curiosity is really helpful.
But Chelsea, call us out on this because you have a story that is wanting to help someone that didn't want to help themselves.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, I think it's so hard because you can't change anyone. And even though your heart might be burdened for them, we can only control what we can control, which is us. and pray like crazy. Prayer is powerful. I don't want to make it super Christianese and like barfy of just pray about it, but for real, like God can do a work that you can never do. And when you partner with him, you can go so much further faster.
Yeah.
I wish my first husband would have gone to therapy way earlier and it wouldn't have been court ordered because it got to a point. And then he stopped going, and that's when he took his life. But he had the entire fear and rigidity of, I'm not opening up. I'm not to blame. I don't have a problem. I'm okay. I don't need help. I'm going to continue to stuff it, and I'm going to make it until I break it. And this will be my ending point at whatever point. It's heartbreaking. But I think to your point, Josh, like it is so key. You have to come with an open mind because you might not see it the way none of us ever see it through a perfect clear lens of whatever the other person is going through or our circumstances or situation. We have to come in with an open mind that is willing for us to do the work in our hearts and lives, regardless of what the other person is going to do in their hearts and lives, and do our best to model the healing that we can bring to the situation, to the relationship, because we can't change anybody. And you have to want help in order to change. You have to acknowledge, I have a problem and I need help, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get the healing that I need, and to be a supportive person that says, I'm in it with you every step of the way. No matter what this looks like, I will do my part. I am willing to open my heart and myself to whatever I need to change. And I'm here beside you, not judging you or condemning you or pointing the finger or saying who's to blame, but I'm in this for the long haul, no matter what this looks like. Because I think people just need a safe place to land, and they need to know on the other side of their bravery and vulnerability that they're not going to get condemned and judged and scorned, whatever it is they're confessing. They need a safe healer. And we can be a home and a safe healer for the people in our lives. We can. It doesn't mean we need all the answers. I'm no therapist, but I can do my part to be a loving place for the people in my life to come to say, life sucks right now, and I'm hurting, and I don't know what to do, and I'm not fine, and I don't know what's going on. I can say, all right, I don't need to react and be like, oh my gosh, you did what? Like, no, I can just be like, okay, let's talk about it.
Imagine you have a Chelsea listening who's going, struggling, husband is going through some just terrible pain, terrible emotional hurt. Let's say you got someone listening. 1 or 2 steps that you would have advised Chelsea if you had known her then.
Yeah.
Not that it would have changed anything, and I want to be clear on that. But
yeah, I think I'm just drafting off of what you two already said. That's really good. I think, but just pulling a few things out. I think one, approaching knowing that you have limited control, because that will really ramp up your stress and anxiety when they're not responding to you the way you want. Right. So if I go in with an expectation that like, I'm going to puppeteer this down the road, it doesn't mean I don't go in with hope and with some purpose. But I think the prayerful state isn't just, empty platitudes of prayer. Is like, help me stay in a place where like, I don't control this.
So prayer relinquishes control to someone that actually can control.
Yes.
Okay. You can't force somebody.
Step one is relinquish
Yes.
control, which is counterintuitive for the parent
versus
that
take control.
Fix them.
Right.
For most human beings, your anxiety to fix the problem and take control is going to bring up defensiveness in the other person.
Yep.
But what about the person that says, now you're just enabling?
Yeah, no, that doesn't mean you walk away.
Right.
Okay.
I'm just saying you don't march in.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
you don't
commanding
go in for
them
battle.
to and fro.
Right. Right.
Yeah, they're gonna turn an ear away from you,
Right.
right? And I think the part that you said that's also really important is, at least this is what I took from what you said, and I talk about this a lot, is curiosity over declarations, which is like, can you just start with a lot more questions than you do statements? So like what you're talking about is, how do I get into hard conversations where I know something's not good and I don't think they're interested in talking about that, right?
Yeah.
That's really kind of the thesis of that.
Yeah, they're prickly. They're angry.
Yeah. And if I say like, hey, you got prickles, or like, hey, like you need to get rid of, Not that anybody would walk in necessarily with that attitude, but like if there's a vibe to that, well, that's true.
Yeah.
There's an energy that can be felt in that you're not okay with me and you just want me to be different for you. And I think curiosity, which brings about empathy, like what is going on? You said this, what is going on for them? I probably see how their symptoms are affecting me. This is really true in marriages. What I know immediately, or with kids, your symptoms are bad and they're frustrating me. I'm annoyed.
Right.
I'm angry with you now. You're not giving me what I need. But if I'm going to go into that conversation on deeper level things, there is something going on beneath that. Like that's not the end of the story. Like there is a deeper story going on. So if I'm going to get to the root, they haven't got to the root.
Yeah.
So how do I help get to the root? I also have to reject just the surface annoyance, behavior stuff. I have to get to something. I know something deeper is going on with them. I'm going to show interest and curiosity versus I'm going to ask a lot more questions than I make statements. You have to stop doing. I'm going to ask a lot more questions than I make statements, which leads me to a place of empathy where maybe they give me a little more than they gave me last time.
Love that.
Maybe they let me in.
I was going to say too, that part where you're talking about like that defensiveness, like that, they're going to show up defensive. In relationships, the Gottmans have done the research on this, but there's 4 things that they talk about in relationships that are like relationship killers. 4 things. You named one. Contempt was one of them. Okay. The others are.
I dare say I got that from them.
Oh, nice. Nice. But you got criticism. Well, you're talking about defensiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you have paired up with defensiveness when I'm criticized? Now, am I trying to criticize my spouse?
Sure.
Probably not. In my heart, I'm trying to just stand up for myself and not feel like I'm walked over or whatever. But I might not be aware. I got something coming out of me that sounds a little critical, right?
Yeah.
And so when I see defensiveness, I think, why are you so defensive? Well, I have to see that there's a pairing, there's an influencing. Like I'm influencing you. You might not be saying it, but you feel criticized. And so then when you get defensive, okay, that's where that's coming from. And then the next one is stonewalling. I'm done with that. I don't want to deal with that. I'm just going to shut down. I've been criticized enough. So I just turn into a big stone wall.
Wow.
You can say anything you want. I just look at you every once in a while, but I just turn away. The last is that contempt. It's like, I'm done with you. I'm no longer irritated at you. I'm irritated at who you are. You are ashamed. You should be ashamed. So those are the 4 things that are just not good. And I think being ready to be open, that maybe a therapist could help us to not get into these loops that end up killing our relationship. Maybe they can help us to just take new steps and just have a curiosity, but just not get into the dance that we often find ourselves in with the story congruent with what I think it is, where you're the problem.
So a lot of us have a misunderstanding that, spiritual unhealth immediately leads to mental unhealth. And the two can't be in the same room together. Like you can't be mentally unhealthy and spiritually healthy. Spiritual health means mental health. Where does the spirit and our spiritual lives coincide with our mental health?
I would say similar to the idea we talked about earlier of just being one whole organism, brain, body, mind, spirit, soul. Throw spirit in there, right? So they're all interrelated. And they have a relationship. So I think it'd be wrong to say that they don't relate to each other at all. But some of the most spiritual people I know have had unbelievable amounts of suffering to face and have done it while honoring Jesus and putting their faith in him and staying steady in the face of pain or anxiety, still trying to trust in him, even though this thing that keeps happening in their body, when they take the right steps, it's been hard to make it go away, but they keep turning. Or their kid is not doing well and they've read every parenting book and they've prayed and they're doing everything. Yeah, I don't think one equates to the other. I think Paul talks about this, right? Paul talks about praying to get rid of the thorn in the flesh. Was Paul spiritual? I mean, he's responsible for the majority of the New Testament, right? So like, So he was doing something.
I'd say he was
He's
swinging
doing-
with a pretty big
Doing
bat.
something right.
you know?
Yeah.
And there's this really intense, I mean, this is talked about a lot and you know, as it should be in Christian communities, but there's a really intense truth there that there are times where we go through things that God doesn't immediately relieve us of.
Right.
And
And sometimes never relieves us.
or
of.
maybe never relieves us
Right.
of. And in the
Oh.
process, he says,
Mhm.
my grace is here. Just keep turning to me.
Right.
Keep turning to me.
Yep.
And so I know my propensity, if I hear that message, is to be like, I'm done turning to you.
Mm.
So that's where the spiritual and the other part could overlap. But I think there's so many times where to be spiritual does not mean I will not experience suffering in my
Right.
life, in my health, in my mind.
Because in this world you will have trouble,
Yes.
but take heart,
Yes.
for I have overcome the world. Full circle back to what you said in the beginning.
Yeah. You will have me and suffering.
Right.
So how do we, in our minds, I think we want things to be black and white. If
Right.
you have him, you shouldn't have suffering.
Right.
Or if you have suffering, you don't have him. Right? It's either
That's
one or
not
the
real
other.
life.
Wow.
That is
He says the exact opposite.
Yes.
He says, "You're gonna if you choose me, you'll have me and suffering."
right.
So you're saying it's bad theology to say that you can pray it away.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are situations where God grants us mercy and you
Right.
should go to him.
Right.
I think there are also times where if we're going to make assumptions about ourselves or other people, that their struggles equal their amount of spirituality or faith. This is a very dangerous game to
Yeah.
play.
That person, whoever thinks that, has not read the Psalms. So, you know, like if that's you, you've just not processed the Psalms correctly. And you've not allowed yourself to see David writing so many of those Psalms as a human in the battle of suffering, in the battle of loneliness, in the battle of sin.
Mm.
But what you see in the Psalms is a crying out to the Lord.
Mm.
So
Over
You know,
and over and
if
over.
you are spiritual, you will cry out to the Lord,
Mhm.
and you will cry out to him sometimes in suffering, sometimes in joy. I was just looking up too, in Philippians, where we're called to, what do we do about when we're suffering, when we're having anxiety? And I'll just read it. Do not be anxious about anything. It doesn't say that you won't feel anxious. It says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. So there's a turning toward the Lord, right? And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And so when we suffer with maybe mental health, anxiety, maybe fear, maybe we're just so afraid we're going to lose everything because, you know, I'm going to confess something to my wife, or I'm going to say, I'm a pastor and I'm going to say something to someone, an elder in my church. And what are they going to, what will happen? I want to avoid the suffering that could come. But really, when we turn to the Lord and we turn to each other, there's actually healing that can come, and joy comes through that in relationship with God. I was also thinking just after that, it says, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there's any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. So we're called to then turn not just to the Lord to ask for our needs, but also turn to him and then think on the things that he provides, things that are good, things that are lovely. It just makes me think back to what happens in our brain when we think about the suffering. The more we think about the suffering, the more we think about the suffering, and we get into these loops in our brain. And a therapist might help you to say, hey, you're going to get stuck, Chad, if you keep thinking in that way. Let's pray to the Lord, but then let's think on something else, because, you're literally carving a path in your brain that's turning into a superhighway of anxiety. Here's a way to turn to the Lord, and he brings joy and he brings healing from your suffering through turning to him. And it happens organically in your brain.
I love what you said there, because you basically said is as long as we live in a broken world, there's going to be suffering. And that includes both physical, spiritual, mental.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be suffering. God acknowledges it. Sometimes we ignore it. I love that you mentioned David, because what's great is David, if you read David's Psalms, it's all a who's who of God. David saying, like, why am I alive?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
why
is
God?
this happening?
I just like, and
All the
yet at
feels.
the end of his story, God says, that's my boy.
Yep.
Man
Yep.
after my
At
own
the
heart.
He says that's a man
Yeah.
after my own heart. Like,
Yeah.
which, I
guy
think
that got
all of
somebody
us would like
murdered
that
and-
moniker
Yeah.
attached to our name,
For sure.
is a man after God's own heart.
Yeah.
So it was his dependence, and it was his admitting that, I'm not okay, but God, you are always good. Speaking of good, what's on the other side? Paint the other side for someone that's like, okay, I'm at the beginning here, and I'm afraid it's going to get worse, or maybe I'm already in deep. Maybe my marriage is already rocky. I already lost my job. Whatever it might be, or I'm just at the beginning of stages of wondering, am I okay?
Yeah.
Paint a picture of what healing can look like.
Yeah, I think it's different for everybody, but like there is be encouraged. There is another side.
Yeah.
Like, I am turning in my letter of resignation tomorrow. I don't know if you feel this way. If the idea of growth, healing, and change are really just a farce at just trying to keep up with this thing that never stops, I don't want to do this anymore then. Like, the only reason I'm interested in this is because I've seen story after story. I've seen it in my own life when you sat with me, when my marriage was growing. I've seen it over and over. Is it quick? Sometimes, but not usually, right? Is it easy? Sometimes, but not usually.
No.
Healing like surgery sometimes involves a certain amount of pain and a recovery process. And like, there's an ordeal to it. But the marriage that you don't believe in anymore, people are doing it. People who are worse off than your marriage is right now, they're doing it. I will watch it with my own eyes. The families where like they can't reach their kids anymore. Like, it's possible. So I think in our suffering, the point of despair to something, the definition of it is you no longer believe that something's possible to change.
Wow. Yeah.
That is at its core. You've stopped being able to visualize that this thing could be different. That is symptomatic of the despair, of the depression, right? Like, it's not possible for me anymore. I can't visualize hope, right? And so even though you can't see it, this is more reason to be in a relationship, because you need somebody next to you that still can. Because as long as you can't see it, you will not walk towards it.
Right.
Love that.
You won't, right? So this idea of isolation, shame, staying to myself, like this thing keeps coming up. Confess one to another and you'll be healed, right? This undercurrent requires you to borrow sometimes. Sometimes it's not just God by himself. Sometimes he uses us to borrow a brother or a sister that might have a little more hope than you do, to hold on to you while you're giving up, to drag you towards light and hope. The thing that we spend the most time with in relationships, marriages, families, unbelievable stories of change that were, and this is always if somebody's listening, this is probably what's going through your mind, I would guess, if you're like me. Yeah, but they don't have it like me.
Yeah, it's not as bad as
It's
me.
They are you. I am them. I am you.
Yeah.
Right? You were sharing your story.
Yeah.
Right? I was talking about my marriage that for good reason,
Yeah.
for every reason possible, should have been done.
Yeah.
Should have been over. I probably wouldn't have my other two kids, and my oldest, like I'm going to speak just from myself, not even from my clinical work. Like, I have seen therapy, I have seen friendships, I have seen God do a work in my life that in the time of despair, I would put $1,000 is not possible.
Yeah.
It's not possible. And so symptomatic of, I think, the despair point is you no longer believe in it,
Right.
which is why you can't stay in the corner by yourself, right? You know what the outcome to that is going to be.
It's exactly where Satan wants you.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Because that's where he kills you. Yeah.
He kills you in the dark.
That's where he kills you.
And
that's where you
he
give
kills
into
you in
that.
the dark.
And that was me, exactly what you're talking about. Despair, hopeless, this is not going to happen. impossible. I thought life would never be good again, that I would never experience joy again. I would never experience hope or healing. And I was that person that said, yeah, but you don't know my story. You think? Bet. You don't know what I have walked through, what I have seen, what I have experienced, what I have lived through. That was me.
Yeah.
And so if that's anyone listening, I would say right back at you, bet. Because I am alive today when I shouldn't be, by the grace and healing of God, because I had people pull me out of the corner when I said we're hopeless, this is done. I had people fighting for me when I couldn't fight for myself. And to get to the other side is hard.
Yeah.
And you have to face the hell that you have brought yourself into, or somebody else has brought you into. You have to be brave and vulnerable and open to say, I'm not going to live like this anymore. This isn't life. And you have to fight.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to fight for yourself, to fight for others. If you don't care about yourself, be willing to fight for life.
Yeah.
And it's going to be hard and painful, just like it is with cancer. You got to go through surgery and chemo and radiation, and that is not comfortable. Well, to get rid of the cancer of mental health in our lives, we've got to go through radiation, and we've got to expose it, and we've got to talk about it and do the hard work. And sometimes it means you have to face every time. It means you have to face it.
Wow.
And experience it, and maybe re-feel it, and maybe relive through some of the traumatic experiences that we've gone through. So we have to go through the fire to be refined by it, to get to the other side. You can't scoot around the issue. It doesn't happen. That's putting Band-Aids. And Band-Aids don't heal cancer. I'm sorry, they just won't.
We refuse to get on the surgery table.
Yeah.
I just keep asking for the anesthesia.
Yes,
just keep hitting me with the
exactly.
anesthesia. I don't want anything to do with the surgery
And the
table.
anesthesia is
isn't there.
terrible.
Yeah.
It's making me cranky and groggy. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm just getting worse.
Right.
And it's like, I'm just dying slowly.
Right.
So I like what you were saying around it's life.
Yeah.
So to your question, what's on the other side? A
Life.
lot of hard things, but life.
Mm-hmm.
I just talked to a guy this morning, and we were doing some therapy, and I just mentioned, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing a podcast. I don't know if this will come up. Please go ahead and say this. So won't give you all the details, but I was listening to his story, and he's going through one of the hardest thing I've ever seen someone go through. And we're not comparing, but it's really difficult. And I said to him, wow, this is really hard. And he looked at me, and he didn't even pause. He's like, this is the hardest thing I've ever been through, but it's such a good hard. I was like, wow. Because it's living, it's like life that's hard. So I don't want to say to you, what's on the other side? It's going to be great. It's sunshine and roses. No, but the life that you can live, and through the power of the gospel, through what Christ can do in you, and he can take you through anything, you can get through the hard like that. It's like you get through it, and you look back, and God will use you, and you'll have more joy. And yeah, it will be painful. You might lose some things, but it's worth it.
There's a semi-newer field of research in the last 10 to 12 years. And the idea, most of us probably heard the term post-traumatic stress disorder. Well, there's something they've been researching called post-traumatic growth. And there's this idea where the research seems to indicate that those who can successfully heal from their trauma actually have greater capacity post their healing than they had prior, right? Whether it's their resilience, whether it's whatever, they measure all these different capacities, right? And I think to some level, like, this is a sign of God's grace. So when you talk about the other side, it's not just not having the pain, but that a work can be done in your marriage, in your emotional life, and whatever it is, that actually adds to, not just eliminates. Sometimes we would just deal for, like, just eliminate this thing. Like, that would suffice. But on the other side, I think is also something greater than even life minus the thing I've been facing for so long.
So you're saying that it's like a tree with the storms. It's, that stuff, if you can weather it, if you can find the other side of it, you'll be stronger for it.
Yeah. And, or a lot of times, this is more in the spiritual world, like might become your calling.
Yeah.
Right. You participated in a marriage that found hope. Like maybe God's going to anoint your life in a way to help other people who are saying right now, yeah, but you don't know my marriage. She hates me and I can't stand her anymore. And like that, maybe God is moving you towards not just healing for yourself. This is why wellness and pathology are contagious.
Yes.
In the spiritual kingdom, they're contagious. So not only does my pathology leak out to everybody around me, the idea is when I get to the other side, and you will, if you walk with somebody, it can happen. Is that too is contagious. So there is more joy, there is more greatness, there is more power in your story, in your abilities, in your connections, where you then not only are healed, but you become a healer.
Mm-hmm.
That your calling at some point is to be a healer.
In specific ways, like what you just said about you and your wife. Like we're not going to glorify what you went through, but God's going to use it, and there's some passion there, and you're ready to help people who want to, need to hear that same thing. What Chelsea's done when she shared with us, I mean, it's terrible what you went through, but God is going to use it. It doesn't make what you went through good, but there's providence.
Makes it well with my soul, and because sometimes our biggest pain can lead to our biggest platforms and our testimonies to lead more and more people to Jesus who are going through it too. And that makes it worth it. Not good, not fun, and it doesn't erase it. It's not, your story doesn't ever get erased.
It might be hard to internalize that in the moments of your worst pain, to think about it as a platform. Usually that comes later. But just in terms of personal stories, as you were talking about, my wife and I had a friend of mine that I went through a PhD program with, and he was a business guy. So we were going through a marriage and family. So it was really interesting. Most of the people there were in clinical work before, and he did all this business in the Philly area. And so he'd always bring these like business axioms, right? And everyone would kind of like give him a weird look or give him the fisheye, right? But I always thought they were great. It was just an interesting way to think about something. And he used to talk about there can never be a true redesign without breakdown. True redesign from bottom up requires breakdown. And he would talk about that in terms of life. And I was like, that's so interesting. I mean, I can add, I can tweak, I can change. But if I need top to bottom, like a revolution of how I'm living, thinking, feeling, relating to my spouse, whatever, something usually has to break down in order for me to find a completely new design.
Wow. I love that, because what you're basically saying is God might have allowed. He didn't make it happen. He didn't make your mental health struggle, but he didn't miraculously take it away one night, and you're going to trudge through it for a season. But on the other side of it is life, and life to the full. And that's what God offers us. And so many of us are settling with a half life. But if you just rebuild it, if you just put in the work, if you be brave, tell someone, if no one can hear anything else, like, have that moment. I'm telling you, that moment in the car with my wife was one of the most intimate moments we've ever had in our lives. And I've had a similar moment with like a friend, and it's like that moment bonded me with that person forever. And we need that. So have that moment, and then seek counseling. Like if you go to a therapist and someone that can help you put the piece together. I love therapists because what you guys do is you're looking at the puzzle. I am the puzzle. I can't put myself together, but you guys are like, hey, have you thought about this piece? I remember one time I was talking to a therapist, and I was like, nobody changes, and I was dealing with that, and my therapist very wisely said, do you change? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, how do you change? And I go, slowly. And he goes, yeah, so does everyone else.
Yeah.
And it was just like I hadn't thought of it. What I've heard from us today is mental health is something we're all going to go through. We're all going to go through some level of it. Yep. We can't ignore it. We need to be brave to reach out and talk to someone. Get some help, whether it's through friends, definitely through prayer. love someone unaccusedly if they're going through it and be there. And then ultimately step into the life that God has for you.
Yeah.
Step into it because there is more. There is more. There is another day.
Yeah.
And there is another day without feeling this way. There's another day.
Life doesn't have to be this
seeing
way.
Seeing your family in the future looking at you differently, being proud of you.
Yeah. Maybe you're going through a redesign. Maybe you aren't fine and God's allowing you to realize you're broken. He's breaking apart some things that need to be broken. That's okay. You're going through redesign. It's not the end.
No.
You can lean into it. God is there for you. People are there for you.
Yeah.
Your therapist is, I know Adam, I know myself. We love to do this work. We just love it. I love to meet people who are broken. So they're not sitting there with a clipboard and a lab coat and ready to psychologize. They want to love you. So just lean in. There's hope for you.
And so take the step. Take the step. I don't know what each person's step is, but you need to take the step because hope awaits.
Yeah, I also think there's a step too for people who have a little bit of a platform or are leaders. I think you were talking about this earlier, and we've talked about this a lot. I think the culture in the church, not always, but also like secular culture, I think part of the stigma is kind of an old word, but part of the cultural understanding of these topics is not just from what culture says, but from what people do. How many times does someone come to you and give you their pain and vulnerability? Like, this doesn't happen very often. It's like, I don't experience that, right? So what's the platform for an elder or a pastor to talk about their struggles in an appropriate way, but in a way that doesn't exemplify and build up a culture of shooting for righteousness in a way that shows people that it is the absence of suffering and struggle, so that people begin to mimic this process, right? So people who are leaders in your business, in your wherever you're planted, to begin to have more authentic relationships. And I was thinking about this in answer to a question previously, and like if a family member is struggling, I have to be in authentic relationships with people that are slightly deeper than the average. It's like, this is a step. If I don't cultivate deep relationships, I'm probably not going to talk about this when I hit this season. So this is a proactive measure that you have 2 to 3 people in your life. It doesn't have to be 300. That you have 1, 2, 3 people in your life that you have a semi-deep relationship with. The way leaders, I think, cultivate that is we start the conversation. We talk about our struggles, about our pain points, that we create cultures and relationships where this conversation is not unheard of. It's normalized, this experience.
And I'm going to just brag on LCBC for a second, which is the church that's creating this interview today. Is, man, do we have some vulnerable communicators. I mean, they stand up there and they are not perfect. Yeah. And they talk about their trauma. They talk about their despair. They talk about it because guess what? The hero at LCBC is Jesus. So all those communicators take off the cape before they get on the stage, and they recognize who the real hero is. And so for some of you, the answer is go back to church. I'd say for some of you listening, like go. It's been a minute. Go back. And don't just go once. Go back and claim what's yours. Claim it. It's like that spiritual wellness and that connection to an almighty God, that's yours, man. Right. Stop giving it away. Right. For what? Extra sleep? It's dumb. Yeah. It's a bad trade. Yeah. And then I'd also say like LCBC, or find a group. Yeah. Like LCBC, we have groups. Like if you don't have your community, and I think that's sad. Some people are like, Adam, I don't have that guy. Right. It's like, cool. You ain't going to find him at Walmart. Because then you just look weird. Go to LCBC. Like we're gonna give in our show notes. We'll give you information. Like get in the group, get connected, talk to other people. Like maybe don't start the first time you meet them with like, here's all my problems. Please don't trauma dump on the first day. That's a second dinner kind of a conversation.
That's true. Yeah. It's part 2 of the podcast.
Yeah.
How fast do I open up?
Yeah. Third thing I'd say for that, is is just, you got to talk to someone. Just talk to someone. If you're nothing else, drag the monster into the light, because it's eating you and it's going to keep eating you in the dark. But if you drag it in the light, we can all work together to deal with this monster. Any closing thoughts, my friends?
I think just leaning in versus what our heart sometimes judges best is to lean out. So go lean into church. Don't lean away. You know, what your heart thinks it needs, that's mistaken. It's going to lead you toward more suffering. So lean in, maybe take the risk. But I love what you're saying, you know, find the community that God prescribed for you for health and well-being. Even though your heart fears and wants to hide, lean in. It's not darkness you'll feel. It's light. Light feels good.
It's okay to not be okay. My mom's also a therapist, which is super beneficial for my life. But she always says, when somebody says, "Oh, I'm fine," she says it stands for feelings I need to express. And so if your answer is, no, I'm fine. Okay, what feelings do you need to express? It's okay that you're not fine. It's okay to not be okay. It's okay to be seen. It's okay to be vulnerable. Step into life that God has for you. Yeah. Might not be easy, but you can do it.
Yeah, I think too, there is an antidote. It might not be perfect. It might not be immediate. There is an antidote. But it's not more of the same. It's the opposite of that which is in the dark, in secret, is going to have to be seen and brought into the light, and then the antidote can be found. And that process is sometimes a little scary, but you don't have to do it alone. You do not have to do it alone.
Okay, so we're going to end it there. And what I'd say to everyone listening is, if you do the same thing every day, you're going to get the same result. Tomorrow will be the same as today unless something changes. So be willing to make that change. Have conversations. I hope this is the first of many. And go to church, join a group, find a therapist, tell someone. If you need help finding a group or finding a therapist, in the show notes, we're going to give you resources to be able to do that. But in the end, find hope, because God has a better life for you if you're willing to claim it.